It's chipped already? I just did them yesterday. To another video. My name is Heather, and as always, I'm reading with a vengeance, and as always, I hope you are as well. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. If you're new to my channel, a very warm welcome to you. I hope everybody is doing well. So today, I am going to be talking about the books that I've read so far in the month of August. If you've been watching my videos, there have been a couple of videos that I've posted recently that I've kind of pre-recorded to try to get me through this busy time that my husband and I are going through right now. There's still a couple of more videos that I pre-recorded that I'm gonna post sporadically in the next few weeks. But today's video, it is I think it's actually August 15th, if not the 16th. Who knows anymore? But it's mid-August, and so I am recording this when I'm supposed to be recording it. But I've only got like 6 books to talk about because it's been crazy. My husband and I, we sold our house, yay. And now we're just getting into the whole process. If you've ever bought or sold a house, oh my God, the inspection, the appraisals, the this, the that, and the other, so much to do. And then we're also, planning on going on a international vacation in September for 2 weeks. So we're preparing for that. And then we're also kind of setting up where we're going to live next. Kind of a big deal. Oh my God, can you stop licking? Can you stop licking? Zoe, that's enough. Thank you. Mama loves you. You're so precious. Do you want to come say hi? Shake it out for the people at home. Shake it. There it is. Where was I? Yes, the books that I've read so far, not a whole lot. I will say the books share a common theme in that so many of them, several of them, have been majorly hyped over the social media universe. And so I have many thoughts on some of these books, specifically the last one I'm going to talk about. Major hype. Anyway. What else do I want to talk about? Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention. My last wrap up that I did, I think it was the July wrap up. Of course, that was last month. I forgot to mention it at the time in that video, but I had read Recursion by Blake Crouch. And if you watch my videos in the order that I post them, you would have probably been maybe a little confused. Perhaps you had questions because I had put Recursion in my August TBR. And so what had happened was the very next day after I recorded my August TBR, 4 books that I had on hold on my Libby app became available. 4 of them. One of which I will be talking, 3 of which I'll be talking in this video, but one of them was I had on hold for a year. And I'm not kidding you. It says how long you've had it on hold. September of 2021, I put this book on hold, and it finally became available. And another book was I had on hold since March, and then the 2 others, I thought I had a couple of weeks time. Anyways, they all came available within a single day. So I had 21 days to listen to 4 books, which is essentially around 40 hours. And I wasn't going to put them on hold again. No. I wasn't going to do it. So I was on a mission. I listened to a lot of books in the past 15 days. And so Recursion was the first one that became available, and I started listening to it since other people were waiting for it, and I had it on my hold. And so I started listening to it, and then like a couple of hours later, the other 3 became available. So while I wasn't supposed to read Recursion until August, because it was the first one that became available, I read it and had it read like the last couple of days of July. And so that's where that confusion came in. So I read my new release pick for my August TBR in July. Hopefully, maybe I'll read the new release that I had set for myself in July that I didn't get to, and that was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Is that right? Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. I didn't get to that in July. Maybe I'll try to get to it this month. No promises though. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, that in 2 previous videos I had brought up the way that I wanted to celebrate my 500 subscribers was to do a Q&A, and then I'd put out to you if there were any questions that you had to ask them, and you have. I've been writing all those questions down, and I want to say thank you for participating, and I'll be doing that video soon and answering all your questions. I've actually had also a couple of people email me questions because for whatever reason they don't want to put it down in the comment section, so I have been catching those as well, and I'm writing them all down, and I will answer all those questions in an upcoming video. And I just wanted to say thank you for continuing to support my channel and for participating in this Q&A. All right, let's talk about the books. So the first book that I read in the month of August is Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. It's a library book. This is the second in the Murderbot series. Sad to say, I did not enjoy this one as much as the first one. The first one I really had a good time with. I really love the main character, which is the Murderbot. If you don't already know, it takes place in a futuristic world in space, and Murderbot is a mostly artificial intelligent being, but he does have human parts, and he's supposed to not really have any feelings or opinions, but he does. He's contracted out for jobs, kind of a security detail for different jobs in the space environment when people go on missions and everything, and he's contracted to kind of protect everybody. And so each of the books kind of follows him on a different contract. And the first one was it was a lot of fun. He's snarky, he's sarcastic. All he wants to do is to be left alone and watch Netflix, basically. Not called Netflix in the book, but it's like his database of movies and shows he has and that's programmed into him that he can entertain himself with. I enjoyed the first one a lot. I think I gave the first one 4 stars. This one was very heavy on the science-y vernacular and computer terminology and how things work and different ways of transportation and the details of that, and descriptions of ships, different non-human entities. Sadly, this one was a little bit more difficult to get through. There was a lot of other stuff going on and not enough of Murderbot, and really Murderbot, he's the star of the show. Sadly, I don't think I will continue with the series, at least not in the very near future. I gave this one 2 stars. The next book I read in the month of August is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This is one of those ones that I succumbed to the hype. This is hyped all over the place. And this was one of the audiobooks that became available all on the same day as 3 others. This book is worth the hype in that there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to talk about. There are a lot of people with a lot of different feelings about this book. The less you know going in, I know this is like a cliche of Booktube right now. You know, when you say the less you know going in, the better, but definitely that fits for this book. So what I will tell you here, it is multiple perspective. I would classify it as a contemporary fiction, but it's got some twists in it. To be fair, as I was listening to it, it was almost a DNF. It's very, very strange the way it's told. As you've probably heard already, that one of the perspectives is by Olivia the cat. And that's very strange, and you're wondering the whole time why, but that question is definitely answered in the book. So if you are thinking about DNFing it, but your curiosity is getting the best of you, I would say push through. Questions are answered. This basically follows Ted, and he is kind of a socially awkward town pariah because he was at one point a suspect in a missing girl case from years ago. He was ultimately cleared, but the town hates him, and he's kind of a shut-in. He keeps to himself. He sees a counselor for reasons that you don't know right away. and he's an odd bird. And he also has a daughter, Lauren, who disappears for long periods of time, and you are left wondering where she goes, and you don't know until much later on. And you're also, I think the reader is deliberately led to believe that Lauren could be actually Laura, who was the girl that went missing years ago. Then you're also following, like I said, you're following the perspective of Olivia, who is Ted's cat. That's all I'll say about that. It's just weird. It's weird. And it seemingly serves no purpose at first. Then you find out that Dee, she moves in next door, and she is trying to find out what happened to her little sister who went missing years ago. So she's on the hunt, she's on the case. That's really all I can tell you without spoiling anything. Is it worth the hype? I think I answered that a little bit earlier. It is, only in that there's a lot to talk about. Let's talk about mental health. I'm gonna leave it vague, but this book does address mental health. And I remember I have read a few reviews about this, that there are some people who are upset because they kind of use mental health as a device for describing the bad guy, and it becomes a mental health thing. And my thoughts on that are, sometimes people do bad things, and oftentimes it's because they suffer from poor mental health or mental health issues. But that's not to say that all people who struggle with mental health issues will do bad things. That's not the case. But people who do bad things, typically they're struggling with mental health issues. Again, I'm keeping it kind of vague on purpose. I'm not trying to diminish the nuances of mental health. I'll just say that you can discuss. What else can I say about this book? Like I said, I almost DNF'd it. I was wondering, what the heck is happening here? It started off very strange, and not just because of the talking cat, okay? Ted's character is very strange. That in and of itself that can be quite entertaining sometimes. In this case, you're just left kind of scratching your head. But at the same time, I kept reading. I pushed forward, probably because of the hype. Probably because there's so many booktubers who absolutely love this book. Did I absolutely love this book? No, I didn't absolutely love this book. I liked the twists. I liked it. I'll say that. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read was The One by John Mars. This I did a buddy read with the lovely Nikki over at Red Dot Reads. Hi, Nikki. And we had a really good time reading this. This is a fun read. I actually really enjoyed this book. This is a very fast read. It's not high literary fiction. It's very accessible. There is a sci-fi element to it, but very light on the sci-fi element. It's more about like a dating app, really. I've had it on my TBR for a very long time, so I was really excited when Nikki brought up the idea of doing a buddy read. It's been discovered that through DNA, your soulmate could be found. And with that discovery, a service is created, much like Ancestry.com, but it's called Match Your DNA. And if you submit your DNA and your soulmate has also submitted their DNA, your match is found. And for the small nominal fee of $9.99, you can access the details of that person or contact information for that person. It's become this worldwide phenomenon, and people are submitting left and right. Stuff is happening across the world. People are finding their soulmates, and people, many people are living happily ever after, but it's also what's happening is it's destroying marriages and creating havoc in already current relationships. So not everybody's a fan. And so that's where the drama lies. And in this book, we're following 5 different stories. We start off with Mandy, who I want to say she's in her late 30s. I believe she's divorced, if memory serves. And anyway, she finds out who her match is, which I believe his name is Richard. And Richard's a little bit younger than her, but she's looked up pictures of him and he's glorious looking. And so she decides to seek him out, and this is not a spoiler, you find out very early on, finds out that he has just recently died. And so she goes to his memorial and she meets his sister, and his sister immediately wants to know everything about her. Like, you know, Richard never mentioned you, why are you here? So Mandy has to explain that Richard's my match, and so Mandy develops a friendship with Richard's sister. And so that story goes from there. Then you follow Christopher, and Christopher is a serial killer. That's all I'll say about Christopher. And then you also follow Jade, who is a young woman who has discovered her match, but she's in the UK and he is in Australia. And so they mostly have a text phone call relationship right now. And for whatever reason, he always makes up an excuse on why they can't video chat. And you know, as a reader, you know something's going on there. And then Jade finally decides to say, screw it, I'm going to buy a ticket and I'm going to go meet him. And of course, he's not what he said he was. And you go from there. Then you have Nick, who is happily engaged to be married. And he gets pressured into submitting his DNA to find out who his match, because his fiance says, well, yes, you're the one for me, and I know I'm the one for you, but let's be sure, because everybody who actually knows who their match is, they are able to rest easy knowing that they're with the person that they're meant to be with. So she's just like, well, just submit it, it'll be fun. Anyways, he gets the results back, and he is matched with a man, Alex. And so that's where that story goes. And then finally, we're following Ellie. Ellie is actually the woman, the scientist behind the whole Match Your DNA. She is the one that discovered it, and she created this multi-billion-dollar company. She decides to partake in it, and she meets her match, who is Tim. And Tim is this down-to-earth guy who doesn't recognize her, which is saying it's kind of a big deal, because Ellie is, not only is she filthy rich because of this, but she is famous worldwide. She's got fans and she's got haters. So it's a little strange that Tim doesn't recognize her. Anyways, they hit it off and they're having a great time. But you know, there's an underlying mystery there. And so you follow her story as well. I really enjoyed this book. The chapters are super short, and it alternates between the 5 different storylines. Each chapter kind of leaves off in mini cliffhangers where you want to keep going on. Super fun to read. I found that the most intriguing storyline was Nick's storyline, where he was matched with a man. And this is a man who never had any inkling that he was gay, never had any question, wasn't even bi-curious, none of that. But I also just found it the most fascinating. I want to know where it was going to go. I really liked where that storyline went. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all the storylines. This was a fun book. It was an interesting concept, you know, and it makes you wonder, what would I do? I'm super happy in my relationship. Would I want to know that there's somebody else that I'm supposed to be with? Because I feel like I'm with the person I'm supposed to be with. You know what I mean? I don't know. Would I do it just out of curiosity? And then if I did it out of curiosity, would I pursue it? It's weird. It makes you ask some interesting questions. I don't know, party conversation. So I really enjoyed this book. I enjoyed buddy reading it with Nikki, and yeah, I would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. Oh yeah, trigger warning, on the very first page, they have the phrase, you know what? I will quote it. Chapter 1, page 1, paragraph 3. Oh my Lord, she whispered to herself and let out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Next book I read was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy. This is one of the 4 books that became available on Libby all in one day. This is another one that's also been super hyped over the social media universe. It was good. I enjoyed it. This follows Inti, who is a scientist, and she goes to Scotland with her twin sister Aggie. Inti is actually part of a group of biologists who are sent to Scotland to release wolves back into nature. This is in a rural part of Scotland, and she is not a popular, welcome person because a lot of the Scottish people in the town that she's in, they're farmers. They have sheep, they have cows, and the idea of wolves roaming around to basically make their livelihood a meal, they're not fans. And so she gets a lot of resistance from the town folk. So that's the core of the story, but there's a lot of other subplots that are going on that interweave with each other in a nice way. So Aggie and Inti, like I said, they're twin sisters. Aggie is dealing with a trauma that she has endured. There's a kind of a secret that kind of made them leave Alaska and go on this journey to Scotland. And you progressively find out what that secret is. Also, Inti has a condition where if she sees somebody get physically hurt, or it doesn't even have to be hurt, just any kind of touch, she feels it herself. I thought that was a strange component to this story, but I enjoyed learning about it. I'd never heard of that condition. It's a psychological thing, but she actually feels what other people feel when she witnesses the act that particular touch acted in front of her, if that makes sense. So there's that going on. Inti also develops a relationship with the town sheriff. I believe his name is Duncan, which kind of complicates the relationship, especially when a dead body is found in town. And of course, the town believe it's a wolf that has done it. Inti finds herself in an even more difficult position in defending her whole project to the townspeople, trying to get them to understand that reintroducing wolves into nature actually helps the environment. It helps the wildlife, it helps nature, and ultimately it will help their farming. But, of course, the farmers don't want to see this. And they have threatened Inti, saying, if anything happens to even one of our livestock, we're going to go out and we're going to hunt all these wolves and kill them all. It's part commentary on the environment, which I really enjoyed. The more people understand why predators are important in nature, the better. So I liked how that was interwoven into a pretty decent mystery. I did enjoy this story. It wasn't riveting. It lagged a little bit in some spots. I didn't love it as much as I thought. There were a couple of spots that were hard to listen to because, some bad things happened to some animals. But fortunately, it wasn't terribly graphic. I think what I loved most about the book was just learning about just wolves as a species, and there's so much about them that humans can learn from. Their loyalty, to name just one, was just so interesting to read about. So if you go into this book expecting like this major spellbinding, page-turning thriller, you'll be disappointed. But if you go into it and you just have a real interest in learning about, the relationship between humans and nature, and then if you have a real interest in learning about wolves themselves, I think you will enjoy this book. I gave it 3 stars. The next book I read, I again succumbed to the hype, and I read the first volume of Heartstopper by Alice Oseman. This, of course, is a graphic novel. It's all over Booktube. It's all over Instagram. They've made a mini-series. Is it a mini-series? I don't know. But they've made a show about it, and it's super cute, and everybody loves it, and I enjoyed it as well. The artwork is super simple, but I tell you what I loved most about the artwork is the expressions on some of the characters' face sometimes it's just adorable. I don't know if you can see. Super cute. Let me find another good expression. If this doesn't capture embarrassment, I don't know what does. Just super cute. If you don't know already, this follows Charlie and Nick and their relationship. Charlie is a high school student. I think he's 15. and he's gay and he's out, not by choice, but he's out. He gets bullied for it. He meets Nick, who initially identifies as straight, and he is a popular jock at school. He plays rugby. They become friends and things happen. I mean, it's not, well, it says right here on the back, so it's not really a spoiler. It says boy meets boy, boys become friends, boys fall in love. So it's right there. Super cute little story. I mean, just, it's cute, it's heartwarming. Did I absolutely fall in love with it? No, it's cute and it's heartwarming and I enjoyed it. Will I read volume 2? Absolutely. Do I recommend it? I mean, if you like cute and heartwarming and graphic novels, I read this in one sitting. It's super fast. So yeah, I gave it 3 stars. Okay, the last book I want to talk to you that I just finished yesterday, I have a lot of thoughts on, and that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Okay, lots of thoughts on this. I listened to this. This was the book that I had on hold since September of last year. So I wasn't going to not check it out and listen to it. I wasn't going to put it back on hold. So I had like 4 days, 5 days to listen to this book. And it was like 11 hours. And fortunately, it was a good book. Here's the thing. I am not a big romance reader. I don't seek it out. And when I read them, I've read a handful of them and I enjoy them, but they're not everything to me. Is this book worth the hype? If you like romance books, absolutely. But I'm not really qualified to say, because one of the things that I don't love about some romances, and I'll talk about this one in particular, I'm not a prude by any stretch of the imagination. I like a good steamy scene when I'm watching a movie sometimes, I guess. I don't know, but I don't particularly love reading about it, and I don't need to read, especially listening to it. God, when you're listening to someone say stuff about fingers going in places, just no. No. Let me talk about, what is it about, if you don't already know. Lily is a young woman. I think she's like 24, 25. She lives in Boston, and she's just living her life. One night she meets Ryle, and they're immediately attracted to each other, but Ryle absolutely makes it clear that he is not interested in a relationship at all. He would like to have sex with Lily, but Lily is not at all interested in having a one-night stand. They go their separate ways. Now, the story is kind of told, I wouldn't say in 2 timelines, but it's mostly from Lily's point of view, and Lily is also telling you the story of how she grew up and her mother and father's abusive relationship. Mostly it's her mother being abused by her father. So she grew up hating her father, and as a matter of fact, the day that she meets Ryle is the day that she goes to her father's funeral. She talks a lot about being a teenager and witnessing her mom getting abused by her dad and what that did to her. You also learn about Atlas, who is a student at Lily's school, but he has been kicked out of his house by his parents, and so he moves into the unoccupied house that's right next door to Lily, and they become friends, and Lily helps him, and they develop a close friendship and close, strong feelings towards each other when Lily is a teenager. And then for reasons, they kind of go their separate ways. Meanwhile, in the present tense, Lily meets Ryle and they have this meeting, and then Lily goes on to open up her own flower shop. Months go by, and it turns out that this woman who comes to work for Lily in her flower shop is Ryle's sister. So she meets up with Ryle again. Again, they continue on with this attraction, and Ryle is saying, I don't want a relationship, but I can't stop thinking about you. And Lily's like, well, I can't stop thinking about you too, but I really like to have sex with you. And so I will say, because I'm not a huge fan of romance, the whole courtship part of it, I found boring. I mean, if you like the romance, if you like that, I think you will like that part of the story. What I found most fascinating is when Lily was talking about growing up in an abusive household, and her relationship with Atlas. So ultimately, Ryle and Lily do get together, and then some things start to happen where basically domestic abuse touches her life again. I won't say how. I think it was interesting how it was addressed in this book, and I think it was really important how it was addressed in this book. And here is where the meat of this story has had such an effect on so many people. It wasn't the romance of these two characters that got to me, and I don't think I'm alone there. It was when someone you love with all of your being does something terrible to you, it's not so easy to walk away. And that's what this book addresses. I will say that at first it made me angry, because I have that feeling of, if somebody's abusive to you, you need to leave the relationship. I understand what it's like to love somebody and it being difficult to walk away when you know that's the right thing to do. But domestic violence is, anyway, I've mentioned in previous videos, I used to work in law enforcement. As a matter of fact, I spent an entire year working just a domestic violence car, where that's the only calls I would go on. Domestic violence, 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. It was frustrating and disheartening and sad, and it makes you angry what people will do to other people and the things that people tolerate for themselves and their families, and so much to just put in just a section of a video on a Booktube channel. When it comes to this book, yeah, there was a point in time where I was super angry at the decisions that Lily made. But the brilliance of this book, Colleen Hoover, the way she writes it, she really, shines a light on the fact that it's not black and white. It is not that easy. I really commend her for addressing this issue in this way. I will say the one thing that really, the one thing that was addressed more than once in this book that kind of made me a little irritated, and I wrote it down, where she says something like, people spend so much time wondering why the woman doesn't leave. Where are all the people who wonder why the men are abusive? Okay, those two things are not mutually exclusive. Yes, we wonder why men are abusive, and we are angry that there are men who are abusive. Yes, but it's a separate thing to ask the question, because once you know they're abusive, yes, we wonder, why don't you leave? I think it's a valid wonder. And now that I do have a further understanding of how difficult it is and that it's not black and white, I still think it's a valid wonder, especially since, yeah, you can make the decision to continue on and tolerate certain behaviors, and you need to find what your limit is, and how you want to balance love and abuse. And I don't mean to mock that. That came off kind of mocking. I didn't mean it to be that way, but she does address the fact that you do have to find your own limit. But when you start bringing in children into this equation, then it isn't just about you. And yes, we as bystanders, when we wonder, why don't you leave? You have not only yourself to protect, but you have your children to protect. Yeah, it's a valid wonder. So that part kind of made me angry. But bottom line is, when I finished this book, I loved where she took it. I loved how it ended. I loved the decisions that were ultimately made. I'm trying not to spoil it here. This book was just, it was masterfully written. I want to underline that right here. Masterfully written. It made me feel things. It'll make you feel things. I don't think I have to say triggers. The triggers are obvious. I think this is an important book. And to classify it as just a romance, I think is reductive. I highly recommend this book to anybody. Almost a 4.5 star. It wasn't the perfect book for me, so it wasn't a 5 star. It came down from a 4.5 star just because of that whole, I felt like she kind of diminished the people who raised the question of why don't you leave? I think it's a valid question. Yes, I understand it's difficult, but I don't think the people who ask that question are wrong. But that's probably why it came down to a 4 stars. I did give it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book and I would recommend it. So worth the hype. Yeah, worth the hype, but not for reasons you would think. I feel like I have so much more to say about it, but God, I hope it was reasonably articulate. Am I ever reasonably articulate? Anyway, if I didn't make it clear before, what I want to say is that Colleen Hoover definitely makes you rethink the question of why don't you leave, and makes you understand, or at least gives you a little bit more understanding of how difficult it can be to leave a relationship that, other than the one thing, and not to diminish that one thing, it's kind of a big one thing, but it is just the one thing where everything else is perfect and everything else is beautiful and everything else is love and sunshine and butterflies and all that. There's this one thing, regardless of how big it is, it can seem small when everything else is so wonderful. So kudos to Colleen Hoover for writing that dilemma in such a relatable way, because it is an important conversation to have, and to put it in this medium and in specifically in this genre, which is such a popular genre, to put this conversation in this type of book was brilliant and relevant, and I think helpful to so many people for so many different reasons. And that is it. Those are the books that I have read so far in the month of August. What am I reading now? I'm going to start listening to The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. I'm going to start listening to that today. It's so exciting to start a new audiobook. And then I'm about 100 pages into Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. A little bit more than 100 pages. So far so good. I don't want to say anything just yet, but I'm enjoying it so far. How is your reading month going so far? I hope it's going well. If you're still watching at this point, I'd really appreciate it if you gave that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be super. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.